Have you ever found yourself in the perfect teaching environment, but with no roadmap for your music history curriculum? Imagine having all the resources you need to create engaging lessons, but you don't have a clear plan. How do you navigate this challenge? In this video, I'm going to share with you some practical tips to help you start planning your middle school music history curriculum. Hi, I'm Julia from GU Teaching Resources, and I'm a music teacher with over 20 years of experience in the grade 7 to 12 music classroom. I know the challenges and the rewards of the middle school music classroom, but I also know it's really hard to know what to plan and when. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through my own journey of what I do when I'm starting my planning. And I have to say, I'm at this time of recording, I'm in the middle of planning myself for next year. My school year starts in January. So I'm in the middle of planning for 2024. So with that in mind, let's get started. Middle school music history curriculum planning made easy. So welcome. In this video, we're going to go through quite a bit. So first thing we're going to look at is time management and scheduling, using outcomes to plan, planning your scope and sequence, planning when and what to assess, planning for differentiation and inclusivity, and also what resources you might want to use. Hi, I'm Julia from GU Teaching Resources, and my mission is to help busy music teachers like you in classrooms around the world with the resources that you need to teach music appreciation to inspire the next generation of musicians. If you'd like a fantastic little free resource, head on over to this link here, juliaju.com/makeover your music curriculum, and that'll give you 5 different things you might want to consider when you're planning your own music curriculum, like we're doing now. So picture this. It might be a bit of a fairy tale, but picture this anyway. You've just interviewed for your dream teaching job. It's a great school with a great reputation and a beautiful area close to where you live. Sounds perfect, doesn't it? Everything and anything you need could possibly wish to have in the music classroom is there. Lots of instruments, plenty of space, nice furniture, and even better, you've got great storage. Sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? Just one problem. Of course there is. There isn't a music history curriculum for you to follow. There are no music teaching resources for you to base your lessons on. Where do you start? Well, this unfortunately has happened to a lot of people. I know because I see it in all the Facebook groups. I've got a new job and I've got nothing to teach with. This video is going to be here to help you. Now, before we start, if you can hear a fan or an air conditioner going, please bear with me. It is 37 degrees Celsius here today, and it's rather hot. So and my workroom is the west of the house, and this is in the afternoon, and it is quite warm in here. So sorry, but it's just too hot not to have the fans and stuff going. So I'm sorry if that's distracting, but bear with me because I need it on. It's too hot. Anyway, let's get started. We know as music teachers that music history and music appreciation are not just subjects. They're gateways to exploring the rich tapestry of human culture through the lens of the elements of music. However, teaching music history often comes with its own set of challenges, especially in the middle school or general music classroom. Where do you start? In this comprehensive guide, hopefully this will show you everything you need to think about. The aim is to simplify the process of middle school music history curriculum planning to make it a rewarding and enlightening experience for both you, the teacher, and your students alike. But as you know, planning your music lessons is not always easy, particularly when you don't have a music history curriculum to base your lessons on. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is not something that you can do like that. This will take you a while. And honestly, if you thinking about this as long term, you will teach it and then you'll fix it and then you'll teach it again and you'll fix it and you'll keep just jigging things along the line to make sure that it's just the right thing for what you need to teach and what your students need to learn. Okay, so this is not a one and done experience. Okay, you need to make sure that you've got the mindset that this is going to take a while, but it is so worth it if you put the planning in place first. so that you can set yourself up for success. And I do mean set yourself up for success. Now, personally, what I've done for years is I plan out my whole year for every one of my classes so that I'm not scrambling for lessons. I know what I'm teaching. I know what I'm assessing. I know when things are happening, so that I can literally walk into my classroom, because I've been doing this a long time, I can, and go, where are we up to? Right, we're from here, let's keep moving. And I can adapt as we need to. But if you're starting from scratch and you haven't got anything to base your anything on, you might want to start with some resources, something tangible. But these are still questions that you're going to have to ask yourself. So this, I said, this is going to be a long video, I'm sorry, but there's a lot to get through because it's just a big topic. So as you know, planning your music history curriculum takes time, but to help you in this process, there are a few simple things you need to consider that will make it easier for you. These include time management and scheduling, using outcomes to plan, planning your scope and sequence, planning when and what to assess, planning for differentiation and inclusivity, and what resources to use. There's a lot to consider in each one of these, so let's break them all down. So the first one, time management and scheduling. Now, every school will have a different type of schedule, and what yours look like will be very different to mine. I know, for example, we teach over a 2-week cycle. Okay, so 5 days, 10 days cycle, and that I have within those 10 days, maybe my 2024 schedule should look like something like a year 11 class, a year 9 class, and probably about 3 year 7 classes. As I'm a head teacher, so I don't have as much classroom time as some of my other classes. There's still 5 classes to plan for. So I'm still thinking about what I've got to do. And I know that I don't see those kids every single one of my classes every day. It's different. Every day is different over the cycle of the 10 days. Yours might be different. You might know that you are seeing your kids for a certain amount of time, one term, and then you see a different class the next term, and then the next, you know what I mean? Every school is different. So I can't speak to what you must do. I'm just giving you some ideas because, as I said, every situation is different, every school is different, and how they actually run things. So the first challenge that music teachers often face is managing their precious resource of time. Planning a music history curriculum that spans an entire school year can be daunting, especially when you have multiple classes, extracurricular responsibilities, and performances to prepare for. Some questions you might need to ask yourself are on the next slide. And we know as music teachers, okay, so as of time of recording, I know this will be actually, it's scheduled for the week of the 20th, around the 20th. But as of the time of recording, this is around what we call Remembrance Day, and I think in the States it's Veterans Day. Now, you would probably had to prepare a concert and performances for that. These are the sorts of things you need to think about, okay? Because, we always ask to do those things. They don't ask the maths department. They don't ask the science department, do they, to do a performance? No, it's always music. Sorry. Just the way it is. Anyway, what you need to think about are these things. What school-wide events will interrupt your daily lessons? What classes will you be teaching? What concerts do you have to plan for? What assemblies and events do you have to plan performances for? What extracurricular activities are you expected to do? What duties are on your schedule? And on next slide is a planning video that you might want to watch again, which talks about the whole year. And so this is another video that sort of goes along with this one. The one on the next slide is, I did this, I think 12 months ago, again, because people were talking about this again at this time of year. It seems to be the same sort of thing. But, you need to think about what events will interrupt your daily lessons. So again, I know that when I start my school year next year, I don't see my year 7 classes, my grade 7 classes, very much in the first couple of weeks, because they're actually doing an awful lot of things. They've got passport activities and this and that and that. So my lessons are all interrupted. So I know the first couple of weeks, I don't get a lot done. And, it's not a lot of introductory. It takes a long time to get us actually into doing anything musical because there's so many interruptions. So I know that. I also know that there's going to be certain different events. There's always going to be a swimming carnival. There's always going to be athletics carnival. There's always going to be the cross country. There's going to be Pink Day, Harmony Day, all these different things that I know are across the year. Are you doing a performance? Are you doing a musical? Are you doing a big showcase? When is that happening? Okay, they're the different things that you need to think about in the big scheme of things before you can actually get down to other things, because they do affect what you do and when you plan other things around it. So I said, sorry that this is not necessarily a particularly good photo. I don't know where my original was, so I downloaded it from my YouTube thing. But plan a full year of music lessons in 6 steps. And that takes you through the backward mapping process, which I'm not going to go into here because you can go and watch that video on this channel. So the next thing you need to think about is how to plan your music history curriculum using your outcomes, using your objectives or your syllabus, whatever you want to call them, okay? Teaching music history is not just about sharing facts, it's about setting clear learning objectives and aligning them with educational standards. To help yourself plan which outcomes you will address and when, have a copy of those close to when you're planning. Now, I can't stress that enough, but when you are planning things, have your syllabus right there beside you, okay, with those outcomes on the page so that you can go, well, when I'm planning, okay, I need to have these sort of taught these here, there. You need to have a think about when they're going to be planned. I have in the past actually printed them because at the moment and our syllabus is in the middle of a change, but as of the time of recording, about 12 outcomes for each year group. And so I had them on little pieces of paper and I literally put them around my timetable, like where am I going to put them in the year? Where are those going to be assessed? So that I know when I'm doing all my planning that I can actually hit those outcomes. Sorry, I just hit the microphone, sorry, if that hurt your ears. Then as you start adding things to your planner or teaching schedule, add in the outcomes and the objectives that make sense for each class. It's always a good idea to try and keep things simple instead of trying to cram in all of the outcomes into every single unit of work, which I used to do because I didn't know better. I know better now. When you know better, you do better. Try grouping similar outcomes together and work from there. For example, if some of your outcomes are to interpret intent and meaning, apply criteria to evaluate, and synthesize and relate knowledge to personal experience, this would be for an older grade. And in fact, it was because I literally typed in syllabus outcomes for music history and it popped up something. I think this is from Texas. I said I just copied and pasted those bits in. Then think how you could complete classwork and assessments that will address all those outcomes grouped together. What one thing can you do that will hit all those? When you're doing composition, what one thing can you do that will hit multiple composition outcomes, multiple performance outcomes, so that you're not trying to do one here, there, okay? Don't do that to yourself. I said, been there, done that. It wears everybody out, including yourself and the kids. The next one, planning your music history scope and sequence. So you should have a bit of an idea. You've got your schedule. You know when you want your outcomes to happen. Now comes the time to go, okay, when am I doing actual topics? When is this going to actually happen across the year? What am I doing first, second, third, whatever, how long you've got, okay? And again, if you're teaching term by term and repeating it, you teach it the same thing one term and then you teach it again and you teach it again, you teach it again. If you actually happen to be doing that, you'll find that by the time you've actually got to the end of the year, the final classes that have got you for that thing, they've got a really nice condensed version because you've worked out what you needed to get rid of and what you needed to actually add in. So those last classes will you're probably teaching, I hope you're teaching them better than we were beginning of the year. Anyway, selecting the right historical periods and themes and sequencing them logically can make or break a music history curriculum. Remember that music history and appreciation does not mean that you only study Western European tradition of classical music. Can't stress that enough. There are many different musical genres and music history topics to choose from, and what you choose will depend on your own area of expertise, as well as what will appeal to your students. So what are you good at, and what will get your kids in the door? What will keep them engaged in their lessons? Think about that. On the next 2 slides are another 2 videos that you might want to check out that will help you choosing topics and getting some more ideas for your classes. Now, personally, when I'm doing my planning, I think about what concepts of music or what elements of music I'm teaching when. And that will determine an awful lot of my topics and things. So say, for example, I'm going to start my year with duration and tone color. Maybe I'm tone color or timbre. So I'm going to then think about, well, what sort of topics, what sort of music topics go really well with that? Probably rap, world music. World music goes really well for both duration and for tone color because it's lots of different sounds. Those 2 work really well. Then I might go, well, I'm going to do pitch next. Well, what will work with pitch? It's maybe want something that's using melodies, nice, or harmonies or tonality interesting. So you might do jazz music. Okay, you get what I mean. So you think about, well, what's going to work really well for your juniors And then think about the bigger scheme of things, especially if you're taking your students from take my kids from grade 7 to 12. So, but you might be taking your kids from grade 6 to 8. Think about their musical journey. What are they going to learn in year 6? What are they going to learn in year 7? What are they going to learn in year 8? So that when they leave you, they have done what? Okay. What have they actually learned? So you don't want to do the same topics every year. So think about broadly what you're going to do. As I said, I've got some ideas for you now. So there's this particular one is actually more about research, but it's a really good list of different topics that you might want to choose to actually teach. So 15 fun music topics to research ideas for your music appreciation class. Now, I said these could be assessments. This is what that was actually written for. However, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of different research things, more than 15. I've got lots of different ideas underneath each one. So lots of things for you to think about and maybe draw inspiration from. And this one is, again, 5 topics that I think should be taught in every middle school music classroom. So I personally believe that they should know about the instruments of the orchestra. They should know about world music. They should know about beginnings of rock. Okay, so we're talking jazz and African music and rock music and pop music. That's me. I think that every middle school kid should know those basics. They should know those basics, and it gives them a good understanding of things beyond that in other more advanced music classes. But you could be different. All right, next thing is planning what and when to assess. This is the biggie. Assessment plays a pivotal role in understanding what your students have learned and where they need improvement. It'll be much easier to plan if you firstly know the due dates for reports. And this is that old backward mapping thing, nothing revolutionary here. But you need to go, all right, my reports are due here. All right, it takes me 2 weeks to write my reports, and it takes me 2 weeks to actually mark it. So I need to have my assessments due 4 weeks before my reports are due. Get what I mean? So then you think about, okay, then not only that, how long does it take the kids to actually do this? I do a lot of group work in the classroom. I give my students a lot of time to do their assessments in the classroom. I know they get done that way. And so how long am I going to give them? Am I giving them 2 weeks of class time? Am I giving them 3 weeks of class time? Or am I going to extend it over 4 weeks and amongst other things? They're the sorts of things you need to plan into. Think about when you're planning your curriculum. When are things going to be assessed? What's going to be assessed? How are you going to assess them? Okay. Once you know when your reports are due, ask yourself, how much time do I need to mark the assessment? How long does it take to enter the data and write reports? Some of you might be really quick. Some of you may not be. It's up to you. When you know the answers to these questions, work backwards, as I was just saying, when an assessment needs to be due. Keep in mind any school-wide activities that might prevent your due dates from going ahead. Are there any blackout times when no assessments can be conducted? Are there any school-wide events? Now, those blackout times, I know I have to adhere to those with my grade 11 and 12 students, because around the time of their final exams for each year, there's no assessment. They're not allowed to actually do any assessment because they should be getting ready for exams. So you've got to think about, and each school will be different, but is there times when nobody's allowed to be doing any assessment? I've had students in other subjects, like students in my class, who say, now we do a school year from very end of January, beginning of February to December, not long before Christmas, whose teachers in other subjects have made their students hand in an assessment on the very last day of school. Dumb move. And I'm not going to apologize for saying that. I'll tell you why, for a couple of reasons. One, it's really mean. 2, as a teacher, I don't want to be marking anything over the holidays. And the last one is, if someone missed it, okay, that's the last school day, they've in effect then been given another 5 weeks to do that assessment, because they can't put any misadventure forms for not completing an assessment till they come back to school. So that kid's just been given 5 extra weeks to do something. And that's not fair to the kids who actually got their stuff in, especially if when they put in this misadventure form, if it's upheld and they're allowed to submit it. That's really not fair. So think about those sorts of things for yourself and for your students. Okay, you don't really want to be doing things on the very last day. Not fun for anybody. Okay, But when you have an idea of when assessments are due, you will then need to decide what type of assessment it will be for your class. Is it an assessment for performance, composition, listening, or musicology? Now, I know I'm talking about music history planning, but for me, even though I'm talking about what I'm actually teaching, the topics I'm teaching, I still have to do performance, composition, listening. Okay, those things still have to come in, and I still have to assess those things in my classes. So after deciding when you are going to assess and what will be assessed, you'll then need to think about the skills your students will need to complete the assessment. When will you actually teach those skills? Can these skills be incorporated into your lessons? And how will you teach those skills? When are you going to do that? And again, look, I've been teaching a long time now, but in the very beginning of my career, I could tell you it was in 2003, 2004, these couple of years, the school I was working at, the other music teacher, now he decided everything. I was not allowed to play anything. I had to do whatever he said we had to do. But he used to give year 8 this assignment where they had to analyse a piece of music, which is fine. And we always got really bad results. And I remember saying this to my a colleague, and she said, but when did you teach the skills? Oh, I didn't. She said, well, you can't expect great results if you haven't taught the skills. And it was like, yeah. So this particular music teacher that I was working with had never built that into his teaching. So think about that. What do you need to actually build into your lessons so that your students can actually do the assessment that you want them to do at a level that you are expecting them to work at? Okay, so think about those things. So again, on the next 2 videos, there are some other things you might want to check out that are all about assessment ideas. So 7 benefits of using music research papers. Again, this is perfect for the music history classroom. And the last one there is 7 creative research of music assessment ideas for your music class. Again, different types of ways of assessing students, especially in the music history, So that's, it could be a podcast, it could be a presentation, it could be, but anyway, I'll give you 7 different ideas. So that's different ways that you can assess your kids. So have a look at that and have a think about how you want to actually include that into your own music history curriculum planning. This one, how to plan for differentiation and inclusivity. Now, again, I know I keep saying this, but I have been teaching a while, but when I first started teaching, this was not something we ever thought about. We just taught. Nobody said that you had to adjust, and like you had behavior problems, but no one ever really thought about, well, there might be a problem because the kid can't access what you're actually teaching and how you're teaching it. These days, it's something, as I said, when we know better, we do better. And I know better, so I do better. So middle school music classes often consist of students with very diverse skill levels and learning styles. To create an inclusive, engaging learning environment, you must adapt your music history resources to meet these varying needs. Some of the ways you can easily differentiate in the music classroom are listed on the next few slides. And these are just a few things. Like these could be a whole blog post or a whole video on their own, each one of these, and I might do that in the future. But these are just different ways that you can think about for differentiation and inclusivity. Again, because when you're thinking about assessment, when you're thinking about what skills your students need, all those sorts of things that you've got to incorporate into your lessons, you've got to think about, well, how are my kids who are not going to, who might be struggling a bit with certain things, how am I going to help them? How is what I'm teaching them going to help them? All right, so you got to think about that. So performance. So different ways you can do this. Choose music that's suited to the skill level of the student. Okay, so you don't give a student who can only play the piano with one finger something that is, Chopin. Don't give them that. Okay, give them something that's appropriate to their skill level. Choose music that will appeal to the student. All right, I had a lovely student who finished 2022. She was profoundly deaf, had a lot of learning difficulties, but loved being in music. And and she loved playing the keyboard, and I just gave her lots of different options. She loved Taylor Swift. So I had quite a few different pieces of music that I'd bought for, Taylor Swift songs, and she would choose the one she wanted to do because she knew she knew the song, and she would have a go at it. And that's all I wanted her to do. And she loved it. She just kept on playing, we just kept on doing lots of Taylor Swift songs, but it appealed to her. So I wouldn't have given that to the young man who was my little drummer who struggled to keep in time because he wasn't a Taylor Swift fan. So you know what I mean? You got to think about the kid. Give students options about performing as a soloist or as part of a group. Now, again, some kids really struggle to work as part of a group. Some struggle, and some really love being part of a group. So give them the options of being either a soloist or as part of a group. Give students the options to record themselves performing for submission instead of performing live in front of the class. Some kids might find that much easier, and most kids with their own personal device in terms of the phone, it's very easy for them to record a video, okay, and then and upload it and give it to you in some way, shape or form, however you do submissions. But kids will be able to do that very easily. And I've had over the years so many kids who have suffered with a lot of anxiety that this is a perfect way for them to actually do that, because they can actually do the performance and give it to me. They're still doing the performance. Is it in front of an audience? No, but they're still meeting the outcomes. Give students options for what instruments to perform on. Same deal. I don't ever say to my kids, you must perform on this instrument. I'll give them a strong encouragement to perform on certain instruments, but I won't make it mandatory. Okay, I'd say no, you have a go. You choose which instruments. And even if everybody's doing tuned and untuned percussion, I'll say, here's all the instruments you can choose from, but you choose which one you want to do. So again, even if you're giving them a limited range of what instruments to use, still give them an opportunity for choice. Okay, so that's one way for differentiation and inclusivity. Next one, for composition, provide a variety of options within the task. So what technology can they use? Do they have to use technology? What instrument can they perform on or record with? Is it group work? Is it solo work? Okay, these are just some different opportunities and different ways that they could actually do the composition. Are you providing a variety of submission options? So can they handwrite it? Can they use software? Can they record with video? Can they record audio only? What are the things that they can do? So give them different options as long as they're handing something in, okay, and whatever else. And this is why I do so much of my assessment in class, because I can see the kids doing the work in there, so that when they do hand something into me, I can say, well, I know you did that, fantastic. Or I can listen to it and go, that's not you. I know that you can't, that's not your skill level. You know, we might need to get you to do that again. It's happened before. Listening. Give students a set of listening questions that is at their level of understanding. Now, I use this a lot. In my grade 9 and 10 especially, year 7 and 8 generally have the same sort of questions because they're pitched at that level. But for 9s and 10s, they actually have 3 different levels. So I've got the level which is really year 7. Then there's the next level up, and then there's an extended level. And then in year 11 and 12, they've got even harder questions. Okay, it gets more and more involved. But give the kids the questions at their level. Now, I have I've got it here. Sorry, I should have got them out. No, I haven't gone. But my senior level listening questions, again, if I refer to them, my lovely student that was profoundly deaf, I had a different set of listening questions for her. It looked the same as the rest of the class. It just was a different set of questions. And say the question was pitch, I'd say to her, this is the card you need to use. You answer those questions for me, sweetie. And then the other kids would be doing all the other bits and pieces. But she felt like she was doing the same as the other kids because it looked the same. And you know, she felt included. She felt like she could do this at her level. And that's what you need to be able to do. So that's a really easy way to differentiate with listening, is to differentiate with this level of questions, the hardness, the degree of hardness. That's not really a way to say it. Degree of difficulty. Listening. Sorry, I had to think about that. It gives students also the options for music they choose to study and analyse, especially if you're doing this as an assignment. Last year or the year before, I did my year 9s and 10s did a podcast, and I gave them, I said, okay, it had to be an Australian music large ensemble. So I gave them quite a few different options, but they chose the music they wanted to study, and it was great. It was a really good assignment. I will do that again. And the next one, gives students options for how to present the information. Is it going to be in mind maps? Is it going to be an essay? Is it going to be a paragraph? Is it dot points? Is it verbally? For some of these kids, you might actually have to sit down with them and just have that conversation. They're still meeting the outcomes. Is it maybe the same as everybody else? Not necessarily, but they're still meeting the outcomes, okay, at their level. So this is just different ways that you can do this, cater for differentiation in your classroom. And the last one, for musicology, how can you differentiate? So give students a variety of topics to choose and study. So if you, again, by saying you have to do this one, but you might want to sort of narrow it down. Instead of saying choose whatever, you might want to say, okay, we're doing pop music. And then they can choose what type of pop music. they want to do, because there's so many different types. They might like K-pop, they like 80s pop music, 90s, the noughties, the 2000s. You know, what sort of style of pop music? Music from the 60s, the 70s, whatever, okay? Give students topics that will suit their level of research skills. So again, if you've got a student that says they want to do, I don't know, music of something really obscure, you go, well, sweetie, you can, but I don't think you're going to find a lot of information. Let's have a look first. And if you can't, like, if you can't help them find the information, we'll say, well, I think we might need to choose a different topic, a different thing, something different to study. What about we find this? Okay, this is a bit like that. You know what I mean? There's lots of different ways you can do this. So, but give them an option of what they want to do, but at their skill level. Okay, so provide students with scaffolds to complete the research. Give them questions to answer. Give them mind maps, give them graphic organizers. Again, I don't know how many times I ask my kids to do something, and if I always say I only want one biography paragraph. Sorry, my watch is going off. One biography paragraph. Because otherwise I get a whole essay on the history of that person and their life. I don't want the history of that person and their life. I want to know what the music's like. I don't want to know how the elements of music or the concepts of music have been used by that artist. So, but if you give your kids graphic organizers or questions or mind maps for them to actually do that, it really helps. My seniors, when we actually do, there's an assessment I get them to do, which is their oral logbook, and it gets 12 questions, and they get a lot of time to do this. I don't give them a lot of time in class because they actually get it over the school holidays. And I give them space for planning. And in that space for planning, I give them a mind map and say, okay, and some graphic organizers for them to actually use to actually plan out their actual answer. They can choose to use whatever they want, but it's there for them as a support. And also give students options for submission. Is it going to be handwritten? Does it have to be typed? Is it submitted by hand? Or have you got a place in the school that has to be submitted through officially? Is it submitted digitally? Is it video? Is it audio? Is it a podcast? Again, how is that information going to be presented and given to you? And again, you might actually have to get your students to actually verbally, you might ask them questions and say, all right, let's have a little discussion about this. And you could tell me about that, your 1 year studied, so that you can actually get something from them. Again, just different ways to differentiate. So music history teaching resources. So now you can see that there's a lot to consider when planning out your music history curriculum. There's a lot, okay? But you don't have to start from scratch. There are resources out there ready to go that will make it much, much easier for you to plan and teach for 2 whole years. So if I go back to my grade 7 and 8s, this is where these resources are all based in. This comprehensive resource is designed to make your curriculum planning journey easy, engaging, and effective. It contains 12 complete units of work, each equipped with music history lessons, appreciation lessons, elements of music listening activities, practical hands-on lessons, assessments, vocab, activities, and reading comprehension strategies to keep everybody happy. You'll discover how these resources align perfectly with your curriculum needs while offering engaging interactive experiences with your students. I said, these are ready to go, and then you can plan your bits and pieces around them. Just what order you want to teach. And this bundle includes 12 resources. They are all ones that I've used. I can tell you they work in the classroom, okay? They're with my grade 7 and 8s. Now, my current school, we teach music in grade 7 and they do visual arts in year 8. I know you've heard me say that before, but my previous school, they did music in year 7 and 8. And so it depends on what your school actually does, okay? So I'm going to show you what I'm teaching when I taught it for year 7 and 8. This is what I would teach and the order I taught. So grade 7, we'd always do rhythm and rap first. Then we do instruments of the orchestra. We do film music. We do a keyboard mini unit, okay? And then we do world music at the end. That was just the way we do it. Film music and world music, sometimes I swap those around. So sometimes film music would be at the end and world music would be beforehand. It depended on the year and lots of different other things. But that was the order of things I'd do. Rhythm and rap, we always did a performance and composition assessment. Instruments of the orchestra was the make an instrument assessment. Film music, we generally didn't do an assessment because by then we were doing the keyboard and we would be doing a performance assessment and we'd do some sort of listening activity by the end of the year. And world music, it was just something fun to do at the end of the year. Or again, film music at the end of the year because it gave us a reason to watch some movies. Sometimes you got to plan like that. But world music was always good because we could just do lots of different activities and play lots of different instruments and just have a bit of fun for the end of the year. Kept it light. Grade 8, we were mainly doing focus on rock music, because for me, my grade 8s at this particular school, this is the time they were choosing their subjects for 9s and 10. So I wanted to give them a really good experience in year 8s. They would go and choose music as a subject. Otherwise, you know, I would be teaching maths, which I had to sometimes. Didn't like to do that. Anyway, this is the order I'd used to teach. And we used to do a bit more with year 7, with year 8. Big beginning of rock music, African and jazz. We do rock music history, so the pioneers of rock. Then the instruments of rock and pop, guitar and drum kit would be put in there somewhere, because we'd be actually learning how to play the guitar, learning how to play the drum kit, and rock and pop musicians to finish off the year, popular musicians and bands from the 1960s to the 2000s. Again, because by the time that the end of the year, the kids knew what instruments they liked to play, they knew what they wanted to do, and we would just play lots of different songs as a class, or I'd give them different songs to play. So it was just a way that we could introduce, and there was no assessment. So beginnings of rock, that's when I would do my African ensemble composition project, so it's composition and performance. The pioneers of rock, the instruments of rock, we would do the rock design project. Kids love doing that one. Alrighty. And then obviously at the end of the year, we'd be doing listening, some sort of listening assessment, as well as the guitar. Kids would actually get to perform on an instrument of their choice, whether it be guitar or drum kit or ukulele or keyboard, and they perform something for their assessment at the end of the year, and some sort of listening test. But that's what I would do in my grade 8s. So this is the bundle that has all those topics, all of those in it, and it's just the units of work. All right, so middle school music history curriculum planning doesn't have to be a daunting task. By addressing the challenges of time management, clear outcomes, scope and sequence, assessments, differentiation, as well as inclusivity, you can craft a music history course that both you and your students will love. And to make this journey truly easy and engaging, don't forget to explore the music history bundle, which I was just showing you. It's a resource that has been designed to help you overcome the budget constraints, because look, it's not cheap to get it, but it is 2 years worth of work, okay, ready to go. You just have to plan the other things around it, because I can't do that for you, because every school's different. Look, as said, it's a resource designed to help you overcome budget constraints, student diversity, and time limitations often faced by music teachers. Discover the joys of teaching music history and appreciation by simplifying the planning process. And it's just fun. As I said, these are units that are fun. I like teaching them. The kids like learning them. They have a bit of fun. And that's all I want for my middle school kids, my year 7s and 8s. That's all I want from them to have. I want them to have a good experience in music. So what we've gone over today is time management and scheduling, using outcomes to plan, planning your scope and sequence, planning when and what to assess, planning for differentiation and inclusivity, and also I've shown you what resources you could possibly use. So if you'd like some more ideas on how to make your music class interesting, as I said, there's a freebie there, which is the 5 ways to make over your music curriculum download. Perfect addition to what we've just been talking about at juliageo.com/makeover your music curriculum. If you'd like another freebie, and I talked about this, the elements of music mind maps, these are fantastic to use for differentiation in your classroom and for so many different things. But again, if you want a free copy, juliageo.com/free mind maps. Now, those mind maps go with all of my blog posts that are all about the elements of music on my website, juliageo.com, and there's videos on this channel about each of the elements of music as well. And if you want to buy that particular resource, or just even one part, you don't have to buy the whole thing. You might want to buy bits and pieces. You might decide, well, that one's going to work, and that one's going to work, and that one's going to work. Go for it. Get what you need. But you can find them all over at my TPT store over there at Julia Teaching Resources. And thank you so much for watching. So as I said, I knew it was going to be a long one, this one, because there's a lot to planning, and I've given you lots and lots of different ideas, lots of things to think about, and just be mindful. This is not something that's one and done. This is something that takes forever. I'm currently in the process of doing this myself, and I'm giving myself a good couple of months to get this right before I start teaching the beginning of next year. So I know that this takes forever, and you can't sit down and just do it in one day. You can't. It will do your head in. You have to take time. So you might think about, okay, well, what are are my assessments going to look like? What outcomes am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And then think about, what unit can I put in when? And then build it out from there. As I said, you start with the bones and you keep putting more and more on it until you get something that's hopefully got a bit of body about it. Okay. Anyway, I'm Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and until next time, happy teaching.